Well, I always start with this first slide because everything grown in this salad bowl is grown on our farm in Santa Cruz, except for the olives. But everything else we can grow locally, and we can grow most of the stuff 12 months a year. And we do it. You'll see throughout the slides. We're growing food in northern New Mexico at an elevation of 5,300 feet with nothing but solar energy. We're about 3.5 acres of land, which isn't a lot. It's 3.5 acres. We do 72 different varieties of produce a year, and we do it 12 months. And like I said earlier, using nothing but solar energy. So instead of trying to make all our money in just like 120 days or 180 days of a regular growing season, we've been able to extend our growing season to 365 days, and that way money can keep coming in every month so that we can keep paying the bills, instead of traditional farming where you try to make all your money in just a short period of time. But there's challenges with doing that kind of growing also, is that you have to develop markets and those types of activities. Part of the farm story is I farmed the same land my ancestors farmed hundreds of years ago. I use a lot of the same rituals and techniques and traditions my ancestors used, and then I incorporated with a little bit of new technology that allows us to be more economically viable, so that it makes it a little easier to make a living. In 2002, I started to switch towards developing this year-round method of growing, of being able to grow in the middle of the winter. And these hoop houses here that you see, these plastic hoop houses with a PVC pipe, were the first ones I made. And they were 14 feet wide or about 15 feet wide, and they're about 85 feet long. And they were costing me about $280 to make. And I was putting these up in the fall, and then I would take them down in the spring. But what these were doing, these were allowing me to start to grow produce in the winter. Our farm being so small and being so many diverse crops is that we have to look at a diverse fertility programs within our crop selections themselves. So like here you're seeing a picture of asparagus. We planted the asparagus about 9 years ago, and it's a perennial. It'll last about 20 years in the ground. We have 4,000 plants of asparagus planted. We planted them in rolls 3 to 4 feet apart, and then we put the rolls about a foot apart in between the plants. And then after 2 years, we started harvesting the asparagus. So off of 4,000 plants, we can get about 2,000 pounds to maybe 3,000 pounds of asparagus. And it's in a small plot, about 80 feet wide and about 200 feet long. And if you look at the prices for certified organic asparagus, they're about $7, $8 a pound. So if you're raising 2,000 pounds of asparagus a year and you're getting $8 a pound, that's $16,000 in just a little space of land that's 80 feet by 200 feet wide. The strawberries take a little bit more care. When we prepare the beds for the the strawberries, we'll go ahead and we have our strawberries on what we call the 3-year crop rotation. And every year we take out 5,000 strawberry plants, and then we put in 5,000 more strawberry plants. But to get ready for that, the ground has to rest for 3 years before we ever put strawberries into it again. So we'll take it out of a strawberry production like we did this year. We had this strawberry patch here. We pulled it up and we'll put it into a cover crop. The cover crop that we chose for the strawberries is three different kinds of grain. It's got a grain, a triticale, it's got a hairy vetch, and it's got a cowpea in it. And all three complement each other so that we can get a really good cover crop in the field itself. And then the other thing that we grow are blackberries. This is a variety called Triple Crown. Each plant puts on about 8 to 10 pounds of blackberries. In between these rolls where the snow is that we're growing white clover. And the clover we're letting it grow about 12 to 14 inches tall, and then it starts to flower, a white little flower. And as soon as we start to see flowers in the clover, about 10%, we'll go in there with our little walk behind mower, one of those DR mowers, and we'll mow that clover down. and that stays right on the ground. And what that does, that adds a lot of organic matter to the blackberries, and then it adds nitrogen. So once I planted the blackberries, I haven't had to add anything else to them, because the clover grows, it adds the organic matter and the nitrogen, and the plants keep thriving year after year. So you can kind of see how we start the farm itself. We start with asparagus in the early spring, and they're usually in April and May for about 6 weeks. April and May, right around June, we start with our strawberries. They're called June-bearing berries. So they start right around when the asparagus end. Then we go for 6 weeks to 8 weeks of strawberries. The strawberries end. Then we get a little lull where all we're selling is vegetables at the farmers markets. And then from there, our blackberries and our chili crop starts. Here's the lettuces that we're growing for the schools. This also takes a really different nutrient system itself. Just because the greens are so quick producing, we'll plant the salad greens in the ground, and about 28 to 30 days later, they're ready to be harvested. And then we'll harvest them for about 6 weeks, because we'll harvest them once. They'll grow back, because we cut them with a pair of scissors, and then they grow back, and then we'll cut them again in about 10 days. Then we'll wait about 2 weeks, and then we can cut them again. So we can harvest off of this same bed of lettuce for about a month on continuous harvesting, sequential harvesting. We have our alfalfa, cottonseed mix, and we'll make that into our organic matter. Then we'll put that into the beds, and we'll end up putting about 30 to 40 pounds per bed. And then that starts to add a little bit of nitrogen, and then as the plants start to grow and we need it, then we'll go ahead and we'll start to inject our compost tea that we make out of our own compost itself. And that kicks up the nitrogen just a little bit more. And what the greenhouse is like, because it gets so hot, it'll get over 110, 112 degrees during the summer, we grow cowpeas or black-eyed peas, and the peas really love that heat. So they'll grow real vigorous for about 55 to 60 days, and then we'll mow those right back into the soil, and then we'll make our beds like you see, and then that's when we add our compost right back to it. And big greenhouses, they're 30 feet wide by 96 feet, cold frames that we buy for $4,000, and then we construct them for about $5,000 total. Anyway, that plastic on top freezes, creating a layer of ice. And then you'll see we have wire hoops in that cold frame, and then we cover those wire hoops with a polyester woven cloth at night, and that layer freezes at night. And then what happens, the soil releases the heat, and it gets trapped underneath that layer of ice. And these plants that you saw there thrive under that. As long as the cell structures don't freeze on the plants themselves, they'll thrive. They won't grow, but they'll thrive. And then we'll be able to pull back the covers, and we can harvest in January and February into the salad greens that go to the schools. And last week, we sell in about 100 to 120 pounds to the Santa Fe School District. And then from there, we went to move to Albuquerque. And Albuquerque School District, which serves like 55,000 meals a week, is going to buy about 200 to 250 pounds of salad greens. So the project in Albuquerque that I told you about, the $300,000, is so that these beginning farmers can learn how to grow lettuce in the winter so they can sell to their school district in Albuquerque. So that we get people growing food in their local areas, growing food for their kids in their schools, and the senior centers, instead of buying it from California and having it shipped. So our idea is to create jobs in our local area through sustainable agricultural programming. We grow buckwheat in the summer. It does really good. It mines out phosphorus. We grow clover for nitrogen. Winter vetch adds a lot of organic matter and a lot of nitrogen. We grow a lot of sunflowers for cover crops. And the reason we really like sunflowers is because it breaks up the soil. It's got these big, deep roots, and it goes down there, it digs deep into the ground. And then we don't even cut them. We just mow them, and we just leave them on the ground. And then it adds tons of organic matter. So you can grow in a field like this of sunflowers, and you mow it in, and then the next year in the spring, it almost feels like you're walking on a sponge, just because of all the organic matter it adds right back to the soil. I don't think they add any kind of nutrients, but it's just to breaking up the soil and organic matter.